Hi, this is RHM for RHM Movie Reviews. Today are Mel Brooks movies. The first one is 12 Cheers. This has an amazing cast. It was Franklin Jella's first movie, or it was his feature film debut. And 12 Cheers was actually the first time that Mel Brooks got to work with the late Dom DeLuise. Now, he worked with Dom DeLuise in a couple other movies, too, like Blazing Saddles, History Part 1, and Spaceballs. And that was it. Because and Robin Hood Men in Tights, but Robin Hood Men in Tights was when I get to it, I'll talk about that later. Next, and actually, 12 Cheers is supposed to be based on a book. It is not a spoof on anything. After this, except for To Be or Not to Be, the rest of them are mostly spoofs. Starting with Blazing Saddles. Now, this has a great cast. It is supposed to be a spoof of all those westerns. And Mel Brooks himself has two roles in the movie. First, he plays an Indian chief. Then he plays the governor, which I found the jacket he wears on the back, it says Gov. And when you watch the Muppet movie, for his character, you see him wear a white coat. It says something like that on the back. I think it says Professor, Prof, P-R-O-F, an acronym for Professor. Now, maybe some of you may not know, but Cleavon Little, the guy who actually plays Sheriff Bart, wasn't the original was not the first choice, or was it Mel Brooks' choice to play the character? Wasn't his first choice. His first choice is somebody who ended up being a writer for the movie, and that's Richard Pryor. But because of Richard Pryor's way, his comedy, really, his true comedy, the way he performed his comedy, and his personal life were reasons why the movie studio that was going to be distributing Blazing Saddles said, no, we want somebody with a better background who's not, I would say, controversial at that time, as Richard Pryor was pretty controversial. Somebody who's not controversial to play the character of Sheriff Bart. Now, while Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks were working on Blazing Saddles, they were coming up with the screenplay. Actually, Gene Wilder has already started writing the screenplay for Young Frankenstein. Both movies came out in 1974. It's just the script for Young Frankenstein was being worked on while they were making Blazing Saddles. The rest of the cast is great. And I actually think it was the first time an actor in a Mel Brooks movie, when they were going to a Mel Brooks movie, they were known but not well known. But as soon as they did a Mel Brooks movie, they became well known. That is the case with Peter Boyle and Terry Garr, really. Because the rest of the actors in the cast were actually pretty well known, I think. The other movie, if you watch the movie with commentary, you hear him talk about the guy who plays Igor, or Igor, however you want to pronounce it. The fact that he's been dead. Obviously, the actor's been dead for several years now. But it's the fact that the eye bugging out, that was actually a condition he had. An eye condition he had that I don't know if he was born with it or it just came out. It just happened. And with this movie, you only hear Mel Brooks' voice as certain characters. Like, you hear a cat screech, right, because he got hit by a dart. That's Mel Brooks. And the next one, yes, it is spoof on all those silent movies. It has a great cast and a lot of great cameos. Liza Minnelli is one of those cameos. The other cameos are Burt Reynolds, James Caan, late Burt Reynolds, late Paul Newman, Mel Brooks' wife, herself, the lady in Bancroft, does a cameo. She does, actually, her cameo is her dancing with Mel Brooks, which I thought was, their dancing in the movie is very funny. It is hilarious. And if you watch, it is supposed to be a silent movie, yes. But there is one word that is uttered by a very famous mime, Marcel Marceau. He's the only one whose line you actually is the only line you actually hear throughout the entire movie, and he says no in French, which is, I guess, non, which I didn't know that, because that's sort of what you find out when you read the trivia for these movies. The next movie is High Anxiety. Now, it's not really spoofed. It's not really spoofing Alfred Hitchcock movies. I read that in the trivia. It's sort of an homage to Alfred Hitchcock. And this was actually the first time Mel Brooks had been the writer, director, actor, and I'm just putting those in that order because that's what he's more well known to me as. This was the first time he actually produced a movie of his that he had written and he directed. It was the first time he was producing it. And he did get Alfred Hitchcock to look at the film, which I was like, really? You got Hitchcock to watch the movie? You really got Hitchcock to watch the actual movie? And I thought that was interesting. All right, moving on. Next one is a spoof on all those history movies. Two of the actors in this movie, it was their feature film debut as the late Gregory Hines, before he went on to do his tap dancing movies. You actually see him do some tap dancing in History Roll Part 1. Besides him, it was, I don't think I ever heard of this actress before, but Mary Margaret Humes. It was her feature film debut as well. Of course, I had never heard of her, but who knows? There's not much to say about this movie, but it goes through where you're swooping the beginning of time, the Roman Empire, and the French Revolution. Well, also the Spanish Inquisition, too, but that's very brief. The bigger parts are during the Roman Empire, when Jesus was alive. If you are religious, they do spoof that, but it's not that big of a spoof. It is a very small spoof. All right, next movie, Mel Brooks. To Be or Not to Be. This is actually a remake of an old movie. Movie from, I think, if you look at the trivia, it's 1942 is when the original movie version of this came out. And besides Mel Brooks and his late wife, his wife, the lady Anne Bancroft, and the rest of the cast is great. You have the late Charles Dunning in the movie, who Mel Brooks had worked with before in the Muppet movie. Actually, I would suggest you actually check both Charles Dunning and Mel Brooks' filmography on that. See if the Muppet movie came out first or To Be or Not to Be came out first. I think the Muppet movie came out first. And you won't believe after you know him from movies like Back to the Future and the Addams Family movies, well, the first two Addams Family movies, he doesn't look like he does in those movies, because This is a younger version of him, like with Franklin Jella and 12 Cheers. It's a young version of him. You know him when he's old. You only remember him as an older actor, but he's so funny in this. Like Franklin Jella is in 12 Cheers. They are both so funny in their Mel Brooks movies. Now this Spaceballs was actually the first time you have an actor from a Rob Reiner movie be in a Mel Brooks movie. The actress is Daphne Zuniga, and the Rob Reiner movie she was in was called The Sure Thing, with John Cusack and oh boy, I can't remember the actor's name. I think it's Anthony Edwards, who did the first Top Gun movie. This is supposed to be a spoof of sci-fi movies. And as I said in the previous episode, Mel Brooks went to George Lucas to get his okay for the movie. And if you watch the movie with commentary, it's like you hear Mel Brooks say that, well, George Lucas had told him, oh, I trust your judgment. It's like, seriously? The guy is known for spoofs. You're trusting his judgment. But anyway, it is a great movie. Billy John Candy does a great job as Barf. And I found out in not only the making of this, but the trivia too, it both mentioned that fact that Rick Moranis, who plays Dark Helmet, actually suggested John Candy for the role of Barf. Which was like, really? I thought John Candy would have suggested Rick Moranis for Dark Helmet, but it's the other way around. Alright, the last two spoofs Mel Brooks ever did, because after this, no more, because I guess he wanted to take some time off to actually be with his wife. And if he had any grandkids, be with his grandkids and his youngest son, Maximilian. Alright, the first one is Robin Hood Men in Tights. Now, yes, this has Tom DeLuise in it as a villain, but his son, David DeLuise, is in this too, as well as in Dracula Dead and Loving It. I think this was sort of a passing of the torch from Tom DeLuise to his son, David DeLuise, because he is one of Tom DeLuise's 3 sons who do act. There are nods, of course, it's supposed to be making fun of all those Robin Hood movies before, and it has a great cast. This was actually the feature film debut of Dave Chappelle, who, maybe you know, he's a stand-up comic, and he's so funny. I think there's a line in the movie that after you're really actually sort of introduced to him, I think he got that one line that he says in that part of the movie is, I think he got, either he improv that or that was written for him. If it was written for him, because that means the writers got that from watching Richard Pryor on the first season of Saturday Night Live, where he actually said that word. What he called a white person. There are nods to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves and other Mel Brooks movies. The 2 nods to Prince of Thieves are sort of right next to each other. The first one is where Carrie Elwes as Robin Hood, Robin of Locksley in this one, says, unlike some other Robin Hoods, I speak with a British I can't speak with a British accent. It's the fact that Kevin Costner in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves did not have a British accent when he did. I assume, because I've never actually seen the movie, or it actually has been a long time since I've seen the movie. And the other one was actually seeing Prince of Thieves. The last two other Mel Brooks movies are very simple. It's a little spoiler, they're at the end. One's for his role part one, and one's for, or supposedly there are two to Blazing Saddles, but one is that obvious because Dave Chappelle's character actually mentions the movie. Alright. Now this was Mel Brooks' last, well, it was the last movie he directed, but as far as I'm concerned, it was his last spoof. Before he went, years later, now he's doing the voice, he's doing voiceover work, but he gets the voice Vlad, Dracula's father. Now this has a great cast. This was the now Mel Brooks has only got to work with Amy Yazbek twice. Robin Van Tyson and then Dracula Dead and Loving It. And both of these movies are rated PG-13. It was the second time Mel Brooks had spoofed the horror genre. First time was on Frankenstein. And back to Spaceballs. As I said with Frankenstein, actors known, not well known, but once he works with Mel Brooks, he gets well known. That was the case with Bill Pullman in Spaceballs. I honestly did not know who he was until I saw him in Spaceballs. I mean, you can see him in other movies like Newsies or While You're Sleeping or the Independence Day movies, which are really good. Well, actually, I know the first one's really good, but I don't know about the second one because I haven't seen the second one yet. Next movies are going to be the Marvel movies, and they'll take a couple of episodes. So this is RHM for RHM Movie Reviews signing off.